Hello, Kim. How are you?
Hi, Nancy. Doing well. How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Nice.
And my first question to you is, where do you call home right now?
I'm in New York, Orange County.
Okay, cool. I am originally from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised,
I can hear
and
it.
and now in the land of enchantment, New Mexico.
Yes, lucky you. I hope your weather is nice. Ours actually wasn't that bad today.
Yeah, ours was not bad today either. It's pretty nice. It was cold a couple of days ago, but today seems to be nice.
Yeah.
And I'm always fascinated by people's journeys. And what was a turning point or inspiration that led you to veganism? Let's start there.
Oh, that's easy. That's an easy one. Um, so it was in high school,
Uh-huh.
and I went to a very alternative high school. I can say the name on here, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
With Friends School. It was a college preparatory school. And just to give you an idea, the size wise, my graduating class was, I want to say it was about 25 students.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was very different.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I'll never forget because it was, um, I think it was after we had weekly silent meetings. And then after the meeting, one of the teachers who we actually we went by a first name basis, which is also very different. Um, there was a TV, and back in the day, we popped in the it was a VCR, popped in the tape, and I want to say it was a PETA video, but don't quote me. Um, and anyway, watched the video, and you know what those are like. And after that, I was like, oh my gosh. That was my first introduction to some of the things that go on. And I grew up on a farm, so I was surrounded by animals all my life. And,
Okay.
I always bonded with them in a special way. And, and then when I saw that video, that just sort of changed the course of direction for me, thankfully. But that's not where I started, because after that point, it was one of those things where, I was just introduced to it. It was a little bit different back in the early 90s when I was in high school. And, we didn't have all of the stuff that we have now on social.
Right.
Everything is just so out there, which I'm a firm believer, there's pros and there's cons to social media. And this is one of the pros that, we can get stuff out there, like what you're doing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy. And just, putting awareness out there. And so, to make a really long story shorter, uh, that's where I would say I started my journey. But then again, I didn't have a lot of information. I had just seen the one video, and I was feeling traumatized at the time. And I said, I was going to swear off eating meat and, all the things that you would say at that age. And I was 18, and then it was just like from there, it was like an on and off again relationship.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
until I met a friend. Her name is Carrie, and she was practicing Buddhist, and she through one of her friends in one of her groups, and she would do the chanting, daily chanting, and everything. And I was like, oh, she, and that piqued my interest. And then so one day she said to me, she's like, hey, I was talking to some of my friends, and I think her friend might have been vegan already.
Uh-huh.
She's like, what do you think if we try to, maybe we don't have to do the vegan thing, but we can, like start as vegetarians. We'll enter the game that way. And so
Uh-huh.
in 2000, I don't know, I'm so bad, but I want to say it was like 2006, 2007 time period.
Uh-huh.
And, I loved everything what she was presenting to me, and even, Buddhism. I was born a Buddhist by nature. I was actually born in Thailand. So, if there, you're just born a Buddhist. Whatever happens after that happens. But, so I feel like that lifestyle
Uh-huh.
resonates. And, so I started off as a vegetarian. And then I could say that was a solid journey, for about 10 years. And I didn't eat. So starting from around 2006, 7, I haven't had any meat, no
Uh-huh.
dairy. And even as a vegetarian, I was pretty, because, there's different types of vegetarians, the octo, the lacto, there's like 10 different types. I don't even know. But I will tell you, like I didn't have any during that whole 10 years, no meat products, no poultry,
Uh-huh.
the one thing that I did have, I'm going to admit, was I did eat shrimp. And my mom, she always made this really good shrimp dish.
Uh-huh.
And that was the one thing that was like the last thing that I swore off. Um, and then so I transitioned. I was finding out more and more what was going on, and being, educating myself, and just making the connections, and just really feeling it deeply of what was really going on. And I said, I can't do this anymore. I just have to just make the transition and, go from there. And that was in 2017.
Okay.
So, and then, so, what? And then I say to people, of course, every vegan knows what it's like. One of the big questions, well, don't you miss this? And don't, even in the grocery store, you know? And that's an opportunity, by the way. When you're cashing out, if you go to the grocery store, sometimes I do, sometimes I DoorDash, but depending on my mood for the day. But I noticed that sometimes the cashiers, they're looking at my stuff, and they're like, oh, I wondered, is this stuff any good? Well, of course it's good. I'm buying it, but
Exactly. Like you, from the several things that you say, some people need to transition. Wherever you start, it doesn't matter as long as you start. That's number one. And number two, that you were saying, I'm a Buddhist myself. I'm Nichiren Daishonin Buddhist. I've been so for many, 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 many years. And started off, like you said, your family is the one who gives you your first identity, right? So if you're born into Catholic or to Jewish or Buddhist, whatever it is, you're born into whatever the family is.
correct.
And so, just like some people, then go out on their own to find out what works for them, in whatever it is in life, whether it's their religion or their preferences and things like that, the same stands for your diet, right? Or for finding out about being vegan and what it is about. And it's not just a diet thing. Of course, it has lots of other things that go into what is veganism. I myself call it a social justice movement for the
Mhm.
planet, for people, for the animals, and so on and so on. So, you
Yeah.
know, so it is different journeys, but however, some of them are the same. And as long as have an inquiring mind and you want to educate yourself, so that way you can choose for yourself what you innately would like to do instead of what was put on you.
Right. And there's so much to touch on what you just said in the last 30 seconds. Oh gosh, yes, yes, what she said.
So, you're very beautiful. You look very healthy. You're a martial artist. So, how do you find the balance between the rigorous physical demands of martial arts training and maintaining a vegan diet? Or do you find it difficult?
Not difficult at all. And that's one of the things too that is such a misconception. Of course, we all get the question, well, how do you get your protein intake? And you know what? The protein intake is so it depends on what you're doing, really, because we can overdose on protein too,
Right.
but I don't have a lifestyle in which I require so many, whatever it is, so much protein. And I always
No
tell
one
people,
does. Everyone over has too much protein.
yeah, yeah. And I find that so interesting that everybody jumps on that bandwagon. And that is one of the first questions people ask me. And I said, well, do I look like I'm suffering physically? Like, I mean, no. And I haven't had any, animal, I get other types of proteins, obviously, as we all vegans do, but I don't get the type of protein that you're referring to, the person that I'm talking to.
You don't
Um,
get you're like, I don't get the kind of protein that gives me diseases.
or feel guilty, eating it. And really that's, now that we're talking about that, that's really the most important thing to me. The other day, oh gosh, I have one of my other vegan friends, SJ. Actually, she's my only vegan friend. And SJ, I met in Aruba and on a beach cleanup. And I said, what a foundation to create, a friendship, right? Is on a beach cleanup. And by the way, Aruba has really lovely vegan restaurants. I was just amazing. Anyway, I'm just giving a shout out to Aruba now. Restaurants. But anyway, so what was I talking about? About SJ and
SJ meeting her on a beach cleanup.
yeah, and just being able to talk, to another vegan about the things, the things that we go through, but also and food, you know. Um, but so I was on Twitter. I still call it Twitter, a day, and I've had an account on there forever, and I use it mostly to just retweet, mostly things, about veganism,
Mhm.
animal rights, but also human rights and women's rights,
Right.
because I feel that, as we know, specifically the dairy industry, complete exploitation of the females, and with a lot of, factory farming. But anyway, so I get on my thing, and I have to limit myself because it just becomes so, when you watch certain videos, like the undercover ones, or even like the other ones that other people put together and just put out there. But anyway, and it's a thing that I do. And she said, I can't, so I sent her, actually, it was, I think, a preview for Dominion.
Okay.
And, um, I mean, it was beautifully done, and yes, it was difficult to watch, maybe not as much as some of the other videos that I've seen, but she said, I sent it to her, and she goes like, I can't, how I feel, and I can't watch that. And I said, well, for me, it's not that I enjoy watching videos like this, but I also, for me, it's like check, check it. And it's reminding me when I watch this stuff because I'm so affected by it and in such a deep way. I mean, I will be good for nothing. When I tell you that I have to limit myself in watching certain things, I'll be good for nothing for the rest of the day after watching some of this stuff because I can't. And I was having like a few days, I was having a few rough days after that because I couldn't stop thinking about, what I was watching.
Right.
And but again, I make it a point to watch that stuff once in a while because that sort of, not that it fuels me, but it reminds me. It's a great reminder, as to what I'm doing and the choices that I make because as we know, it's a lifestyle choice and everything it's a lifestyle, it's not a diet. And so that's another thing that I try to, educate people about. I said, okay, it's great. I appreciate that you don't want to eat, you know, any more meat, any more dairy, all this stuff, but it goes beyond that. And,
it definitely goes beyond that, because when as people continue to support that industry, the meat and dairy industry, it is not just cruel to the animals. It affects the planet, climate change. It affects workers, farmers, and it affects people who live in not so rich neighborhoods where they put these, um, factories and these things in, where they know that the people don't have money, and then these individuals get sick from
Mhm.
what's happening, because it's polluting the
Yeah, methane.
soil, the air, the water. And then also the fact that it displaces individuals with these climate events that happen. So it is really, for me, I'm always like, want to step up and say, hey, like when people go, oh, I feel so bad in Texas. There was this, this flooding, and all these people have no homes, or this island, and now they don't have home. Or these kids, they don't have food. And I say to myself, it's a little hypocritical, because if you really cared truly and deeply, a $10 donation does not help that. What
Mhm.
helps it is the choices that we make every day in life. Like if we
Mhm.
truly inspire to be a community, and be in unity with everyone and care about everyone, then we need to stop the meat and dairy industry, because it is affecting others, individuals like you and I. And maybe some people don't put too much into it because it hasn't affected them.
Right.
But if it
Mhm.
affected their family member, their daughter, their father, their sister, their brother, their grandfather, then they may have a different view.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too that too much of it is hidden though.
Right.
And like you said, if it directly affected someone, of course, maybe there'd be a second guess. Well, oh, well, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
because they do such a great job at hiding, and one of the best memes I've seen, or whatever, not a meme, but post, is if we put so much, if we, as children, when you go on the field trips
Mm-hmm.
and you take them to the apple orchard or the zoo, the museum, all these nice little places. But if you took them to a factory farm,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People would protest, right? Your parents would go, no, don't take my child to that despicable place. And guess what? It's just as despicable when your child isn't in there,
mhm.
you
you
know?
know, and then the other thing too, about that is everything starts, during childhood. And exactly, like depending on how you were raised and what you were raised with and what your parents, I mean, you have no choice at that point, what you're eating. You don't know any better. You're just
Right.
eating what your parents are giving you or what you can get. And it's, for the brain, I don't know what happens, but, as a child, you're taught all the, and, here comes the thing about speciesism, and, certain animals that were domesticated to be in the home, or, we domesticated ones for our own benefit, right? Like cows and the
Mm-hmm.
turkeys and things, goats, whatever. Um, but you're teaching, little kids about these cute little animals and, to love them and, and then at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
but then what are you putting on their plate? How confusing, and so I don't know when that happens that, like there's a disconnect in there and, that's something that I should actually look into because it's interesting. Like at what point, because kids, I don't know if it's when they're like between 3 and 5, they just start asking why, everything is why, you know? And so you have to think that maybe they wonder about where their food, I don't know if that's too much of a child to wonder, like, do they make a connection? Like, what are we having for dinner? Chicken. Well, isn't when we just saw the chickens, is that like the same kind of chicken are we talking about? Do they make that connection? I don't remember.
Right. I think some kids do, some kids don't, because I guess some kids are more conditioned than others because we're all, I mean, I ask, I'm like the toddler, why is this? Why is that? Why? Like, why do we have to continue this? Why, now that we know better, why aren't we changing? Why isn't the government and the health people, taking us to the right direction instead of keeping us in the wrong direction, and things like that. So that's me now, is why? I want to know everything. But I think it has to do a lot of with conditioning. And we're so conditioned, we don't even know it. Like when I went vegan, so this is how conditioning works and how I experience it. One of the ways I experience it in my own life, right? So when I went vegan, right, because I grew up in a Hispanic household. And so you have, your meat, your rice, your beans, whatever, your vegetables, and then you have your meat, your flesh, right? And when I went vegan, I'm like, okay, so here's my rice and beans, but what takes the place of the flesh? What, like, you're like, you go crazy because you're like, and all you need to do is you add your vegetables or, and stuff like that. And that's really it. But you're so conditioned that you don't realize it. Like, again, so conditioned that I hear people, like I heard used to before I was vegan, say, oh, I had pizza for breakfast. And I'm like, oh, pizza for breakfast. Pizza's only for lunch, like you can't. Yeah. And that's conditioning.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. And along with conditioning then becomes habit.
Right.
Right. And, until you break the habit and that limited, belief system that's been ingrained into you, indoctrinated, then, that's when things can change.
Right. Now, let me ask you another question. What inspired you to pursue martial arts, and how has your vegan lifestyle influenced your journey as a martial artist, or has it?
Well, so as I said, so like you, I started off in Tang Sudo, and that was like a really short journey. It was something that my mom, my brother, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And then we literally, it was, I think testing time was coming up for, like yellow belt. We're white belt, and I don't know which one of us, said, I knew back then, this could cause a great amount of anxiety. I don't know, it could have been all of us. And we never made it to the test. That's all I remember. And so that's as far as we got in Tang Sudo. But so ever since then, it's always been something like I'm a sports girl. I've always been an athlete, in every phase of my life, always involved in sports. And so the martial arts was a little different. And I just was, like I was attracted to all of the martial arts. I didn't have, any particular one that I said, oh, I like jiu-jitsu, or, I want to do karate, or it wasn't like, I was just like, I want to get into something. At the time, but I also knew that, so something about my personality is I knew that if I wanted to immerse myself into something like that I would have to be like, I give like 110% on things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was going to school, I was working, and I was like, oh, I can't really, put in the time that I would like to. So I finally, I knew there was a time where I said, okay, I'm ready. I can do this. And I researched a few different places. And so I ended up doing Taekwondo and Hapkido simultaneously. And the rest is history. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. And then, you know what, you'd be surprised because you were asking about veganism and the martial arts. I haven't, in my travels, believe it or not, sadly, you know, I haven't met any other vegan martial artists. Maybe on LinkedIn, you know,
Hmm.
wait for that. Um, networking, that's how we met. But in personally, in real life, I have not. And that surprised me. It's kind of like with Buddhism, I'm not a Buddhist. I try all different types of things, but trying to find what fit well with me. And I feel, like my ancestral lineage also kind of kicks in and
Hmm.
resonate towards certain things, but um, I resonate with certain things. But I was really surprised about that and disappointed because you would think the lifestyle, it's sort of, like with Buddhism, it makes sense. With Buddhism, I believe, are they vegetarian?
Hmm.
Pretty, yeah. It's not that you have to be vegan. It's vegetarianism. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. I thought the same thing because as I was talking to you before we got on the interview, that I from early on, I was in the age of Bruce Lee. I grew up with more male cousins, a brother, male cousins than females, right? Whatever. So they were all into the martial arts, and I loved it. So I started with a police athletic league that was giving martial arts classes, and then I went on to do actually Shotokan.
yeah. Hmm.
And then I went to Tang Sudo, which is the one that I enjoyed the most doing it. And in when I became vegan, I was looking for people who, thankfully I found you, a martial artist who's vegan. I'm like, surely you would think that there would be more martial artists who are vegan. Just because the whole thing, the mental part of it, the spiritual part of it, and the health part of it, right? So yeah, so I was surprised also that I haven't found as many vegan martial artists as I would have hoped to have found. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I should do a search. Well, you actually did a search.
so tell us about your studio and what you do, because you also have a kickboxing class for women as well in
Damn.
your place. So tell us all about your place.
I love that. That's my favorite thing to do. Uh, so again, with the veganism, I feel that, along with feminism and age of feminism and, um, women's empowerment and, justice and all of it, I'm there. Like this is my mission. This is why
Mhm.
I'm here. And, the Taekwondo, teaching Taekwondo and, I still train in Hapkido in self-defense slash self-defense. Um, but the kickboxing now, that's something that I created just for women. And I actually took a little hiatus and I'm going back now. I'm doing a new schedule and just because I actually ended the Taekwondo program, but it's a good thing because it's more of a stepping stone to getting into the women's empowerment, focusing on that,
Okay.
and giving me the background that I needed for that. But yeah, so the women's kickboxing now, that's going to be, that's like a totally separate program. And for me, again, so the type of vegan that I am, I'm not out there, like, in my travels or, like in class, I'm not, talking about vegan this and vegan that. But it just so if someone comes to me and asks me, maybe they notice whatever I'm eating, or they just in general want to know what my lifestyle regimen.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's when I take advantage of that opportunity, and I tell them and I talk about it, because of course usually it's more like, well, how do what do you eat, and all the questions start coming, that's great, because you know again, that's your time to sort of share and get it out there. you know
Right, right. So
um, where
that's awesome. So tell us the name of the school, and I'll put up the website for it for anyone who would like to check it out. Uh,
Thank you.
so let's do that.
So it's called Han Ho Martial Arts and Secret Weapon MMA. So the Secret Weapon MMA, so Han Ho Martial Arts is more of the traditional part of it, and the Secret Weapon MMA, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with MMA, it's mixed martial arts.
Mhm.
It's like the craze, if you're into that kind of thing, like UFC stuff. Um, so that's becoming more popular in this day and age, because just the state of things, and that's why we decided to sort of push out the more of the traditional stuff and focus on the more practical self-defense aspect of things, and the mixed martial arts stuff too, um, because we found that we have to acclimate with what's going on in the world.
Right.
Um, so so we've transitioned a few times, and so that's what we're doing now. We're kind of like we've been in transition, and yeah, so basically, and I talked to my husband about it. I said maybe we should just, that's going to be the focus from now on,
Mhm.
and a lot of inquiries for that now. And so, I don't know if it's a sad thing or just, people aren't inquiring anymore about the traditional martial arts. And
Mhm.
listen, that's what my training is in. That's what my husband and my stepson Cole, who is now, he's a professional fighter.
Mhm.
Um, and he had been training since he was little, but um, and he had the edge on in that area of things because he had been training traditionally, whereas a lot of the mixed martial artists, I won't say a lot of them, but mixed martial arts, hence the name, you get little bits and pieces of everything,
Right.
but one particular thing, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and so, yeah, so that's where we're headed right now, and focusing on more of that and the self-defense aspect of it. And that too, sorry, one of my dogs, that too. Um, I'm incorporating more of the self-defense, in my kickboxing with the ladies, because I just feel like, that's again, it's my mission,
Mhm.
and to be here for women, and included that, young ladies, women, all the same. And I just, I want to, it's really important for me to get women learning the proper techniques, and we start from the ground level and just work our way up. And well, with martial arts, one of the things that was the best thing, and the thing that I really loved seeing, was the change in the person, when they start getting higher and higher up the ranks and learning more, is
Mhm.
the confidence. And that's the same thing that I love to see in the kickboxing. When you're teaching women all these techniques, and then they're learning that they can do this and that, and this is what this is for, and that's what that I'd be doing that for, and and then you're seeing confident woman. That's what you need out there, is when you're out there in the wild, you know.
Definitely. Definitely. Like as I said, I told you before, martial arts has been a part of my life for since I could remember. And when I was into the Tang Soo Do and whatever, I would just try to get instructors to come and teach women self defense because I thought it was so very important for women to learn self defense. to always be on the lookout, to be alert, and to know how to defend themselves should they need to, because I'm also obviously not just an advocate for veganism. Well, veganism is everything, but for women before I became vegan. So that has also been a mission of mine, to empower women, because I saw what society does,
Mhm.
etc.
Yeah. Oh gosh, we could have a whole conversation for hours about that.
Yeah,
We
that's
could-
a whole different conversation.
yeah,
So,
I'm there. I'm right there. Yeah.
so we're coming to the end of the interview. So, just final words about being vegan martial artist, or just any kind of advice you want to give to viewers.
Yeah. So when people say, you know, upon finding out that I'm vegan, and they're like, "Oh, that's great. I wish I could do that too." And I say, "You can, especially now, because there was just, I mean, never mind all the stuff that's out there on social media, but the things that we have available to us, if because I find that 9 out of 10 times someone will say, "Oh, well, I'll miss the taste of this. I miss, and they like the texture of that." And so, okay, so it's your taste buds, basically, is what you're telling me. So, but with that, I tell everyone that there's nothing that I miss the taste of. I mean, obviously, I'm doing it for different reasons, but I mean, meaning I'm a vegan for the animals first and foremost. Um, Everybody has their different reasons, but that's my first reason. And so because of that, I don't miss the taste or texture of eating animals. But I will say that the stuff that we have out there now, there's there's stuff out there that I've had for the first time going to a place and I haven't had it yet, or there's some new stuff out in the market and I taste it and I'll actually say, wait a minute, and I have to check, I with the server say, I just want to make sure. I just want to be positive that this was the vegan, whatever I'm eating. And, and they say, yes, yes, yes. I said, okay, just want to make sure. Because my gosh, these days, sometimes they really have it, it really close, in texture and taste. Um, and so what I would say is there's just so much, and even in the supermarket stuff is still coming out, new stuff. Um, Really fantastic things, and more, vegan places are popping up, and depending on where you live, and vegan options on the menu. Which, as I was saying before, in Aruba, I was just like, this is my heaven. On the menus in regular places, it's just like half the menu. And I was like, oh my God, this is fantastic. I am in my glory right now. Not just like one or two things on the menu. It was literally like half the menu. So if that's, a thing, like, oh, I don't think, or the food, what about the food? It doesn't taste as good. In my opinion, absolutely. You just gotta go to the right places or get the right things, because back in the day, I will say maybe it tasted like cardboard, but there was like a whole lack of flavor. And I'm sure, like you, I need to have my flavors. So
Yes.
I'll put that out there too.
Yes.
I need my spices, I need taste, I need my, savory, and I can't have bland food. So, and I'm vegan, so yeah, I would say just get out there and just start trying the stuff, and then you go from there, and there's plenty online to look it up. We have our phones now. You have, the internet to look up these things.
Yeah,
Mm.
for
So,
sure.
and then even like as far as products that we buy, women, whatever kind of products you buy, so much of it now by default, because I think companies and like the celebrities that are starting their own companies now and putting stuff out there, they know, and you'll see that there's more of the cruelty free stuff out there without even having to look for it. And, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. It makes me so happy to see that, and there are apps too. There are apps that we can download. And just in case you're wondering, like you're in the store, you want to buy something, you have specific brands, just type it up on the app. It's as simple as that. So
Right.
like there's no excuse, Nancy, there's just, I feel like it's made a lot easier for people right now.
Yeah, and I don't know if like if you're like me, because I try to tell people, even before I was vegan, there was plenty of food that was carnivorous that I tasted, and I didn't like everything. So same thing with vegan products. Just because you try one, there's plenty of other ones to try because everybody has different tastes. So you just look for a product that suits you.
Right. Exactly. It's the
Mhm.
same thing. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is, I'm like, don't get it twisted. We have junk food too. I like my snacks a little bit too much. I had to put that on, on the shelf. And I myself, we can all do a better job, right? Like
Right.
I kind of hold the bar a little bit high for myself. And so, everybody's like, oh, well, you already have a healthy lifestyle. Yeah, but I can do better. I like my snacks. Okay. And so I recently, like when I said I went on my little hiatus, that was one of the things that I said, okay, can't bring our snacks to bed anymore. And we have delicious snacks. And that's the other thing about food, is people always, they have this thing with it, saying like, I know you've experienced this, but, oh, if it's vegan, I'm not trying it. What do you mean if it's vegan? You're not, did you even try it? And half the stuff that you eat anyway is vegan.
Right.
You just because it doesn't say it on there.
Oh, it's an apple. It's vegan. I'm not having it. It's a banana. It's vegan. I'm not having it. It makes no sense. Yes.
You know?
Uh-huh. Anyway, Kim, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. And I always say, if you have a pulse, you have a purpose. So live vegan. Thank you for being
Yes,
on the
Nancy,
show.
yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, take care. Be well.